What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. About that, I'm gonna just. What's up, YouTube? Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit more info on that this Mogul property, the Mafi. I did a video a couple of days ago. You can see that in the Mogul playlist if you haven't watched this already. I actually talked to one of the guys at Mogul today, asked him a few questions, did a little bit more research after that, and I think I've changed my mind a little bit about it. But I'm going to jump into that. But I'm going to jump into that first, and then afterwards, I'm going to talk a little bit about this compound real estate bonds app. As I mentioned a few days ago, a couple of people mentioned this to me. I spent some time digging into it. I'm just going to share with you what I found. Just like always, I want to give you the disclaimer. Just because I decide to invest in something doesn't mean that you should. You should do your own due diligence on these platforms and on the properties themselves. I'm just trying to share my thoughts with you, let you know what I'm buying, but it doesn't mean that it's the right answer for you. Also, please like and subscribe, and also join our Discord if you haven't. And there's a link in the description to that, so you can jump in and talk to. There's several other investors there. Almost every day, we're having some sort of conversation about something someone's buying on Mogul or on Lofty, or talk to some people about ground floor. Quite a few different platforms. I do have links in the description as well to any of the platforms I'm currently investing on. If there's other ones that people are buying fractional real estate on that you want to talk about, jump in there and let us know about that too. So, what's going on with this property? It's a pad split in Decatur, Georgia. I did a much longer video about this 2 days ago, and like I said, you can look at just look on the channel, look back 2 days, you'll see it. Or I do have a playlist for my Mogul videos, and so you'll be able to see it there. My big concern with this one, it's a pad split. It's making money already. It seemed like the cash on cash return was believable to me. I felt like we were paying up a little bit too much for it. When I looked at, so let's see, the purchase price on this is $300,000. When I looked at Zillow and Realtor and all the sites I'm typically looking on, Homes.com, they all were giving me 250, 280, a lower price, a lower value than what we had on here. And that was my biggest hesitation with this property. I talked to them a little bit. Uh, if you're invested on here, I definitely encourage you to jump in the webinars, every month that they have, and also just talk to whoever your rep is there. You can, whenever you like try to buy something, if you back out, um, it will like give you the option to book a call. And what I've realized is that I get to talk to the same person every time, and I like that. And so, they're knowledgeable about the platform. And then if they don't have answers, my guy was happy to go back and ask some questions and get back to me. And so the outstanding questions I had were, one, about the valuation, and I'm going to jump into that a little bit. About getting appraisals for these, and obviously when we haven't had the appraisal might even not be done yet on this property because it's under contract to be purchased. So I understand we're not going to get them up front necessarily, but I would like to see them on the ones that I bought once they're there. And they said that they do plan to upload those. They are, and some of the older ones, just not all of them. And then I was curious on how the money is going to be spent that is set aside for the initial startup expense. Let me show you where I'm talking about here. If you look at the miscellaneous cost, this is like their startup cost. It's $15,000. My assumption is this is being used to deal with issues that come up in the home inspection. At the moment, they don't have a way, something planned on how they're going to communicate that, but they are working on that. So I didn't get any real clarity on this one. I wasn't super concerned with the the amount of money they have set aside I think is really good for the issues that were pulled out in that report. So I wasn't too concerned about it. My biggest thing was, how are we getting to the 300,000? And they do give you these nearby sales. These weren't ones that were being pulled when I was looking on any of the platforms, and I couldn't figure out why and what was going on. And so one of the things that's happening is that the guys at Mogul seem to be putting more emphasis on having really recent sales than they are. Some of these are mile and a half, 1.1, 1.3 miles away. I don't always love that. Usually I like to get closer, and I'll usually go a little bit further back in time. But I realized when I went and really dug into the Zillow comps that some of them were extremely old. And so it made me think that the Zillow number, which was really low, what didn't make a lot of sense. But so I've told you lots of times I like this homes.com site the best. I don't know if I've ever really mentioned why, but it's not necessarily when it first spits out a number, but it's when you actually get to dig in and use their filters. So I don't know if you've used this before, but you can set their filters to only show you sold properties. You can manipulate it however you want. And so what I did, I used pretty broad parameters because I wanted to find a decent number of comps, and I knew that there weren't very many weren't going too far back. And so the biggest thing that I wanted to limit was square footage. Um, Especially because number of bedrooms, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're thinking about the pad split properties, because they turn like every space into a bedroom. And so you're not going to find comparable 6 or 7 bedroom homes. It just doesn't, but these homes really aren't 6 or 7 bedroom homes. It's right, like their dining room might have been converted to a bedroom, or some of those spaces. And so anyway, I just did a pretty broad range for square footage, but wrapping around the subject property is 2,200 square feet. I just want to see anywhere near that. But you have a lot of options as far as like how you cut this up. And then you can also say, sold date, and you get to drop down how far back, right? And I don't like to go back further than 6 months. When I was talking to the guy at Mogul, he was like, "Yeah, we really like to use 90 days." And I think especially the way the market has been recently, there's a good, I think there's a good argument for that. I'm still looking at 6 months of sales, but I think that there's um, because we had just such wide fluctuation, I think it's perfectly reasonable to want to really focus on the most recent comps. And so when I did that, and I searched on here this way, I got much, I'm much more comfortable with their valuation now than I was before. And so this is, the subject property is like right around here. It's on Clanton Terrace, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, 2203 Clanton Terrace. It's like right around here. So, what I would do, I run this search and then I look at, okay, what are the closest ones? Because these sales over here to me don't mean a whole lot, right? Because the further you get away from a property, the more you could have a wide swing in prices. It might be a much different neighborhood, and like even these ones on the other side of the river, I don't know. Like none of these are right in my neighborhood except for this one, so that worries me a little bit. Um, but if I do look at the three closest ones here, you're all right in that 305 to 337. So I wanted to actually look at what do these properties look like, right? So you just like this is why this is such a good tool. I'm really, especially in Texas, I'm kind of spoiled because I've got coverage from a lot of different MLSs. I can see a lot of the stuff in Austin, a lot of the stuff in Houston, everything in San Antonio. And so this, but if you don't have that in whatever market, this is actually a pretty good tool to sort of help with that. So, I was looking at this one, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. Okay, the bedrooms aren't the same, but same bathrooms, and this is actually quite a bit smaller, right? And similar year built. I think that we were looking at 1962 or something, if I recall. But whatever it is, it's pretty similar age. I might be, who knows? I could be 10 years off or something. I'm not sure. But older property. This just sold in January, so it's a very recent sale. I thought that this sale in particular made me feel really good about the $300,000 valuation. Obviously this do they not have? We don't have a ton of pictures to know. This is about the neighborhood. You know, a lot of times the places will take their pictures down, and maybe that's what's happening here. Um, oh, did I lose my filters or no? No, they're here. Okay. So just going to close that tab because I've noticed when I have too many tabs going, somehow that messes with my screen recorder. I wanted to look at this one that's cheaper just because I think that that's, a good like I always want to see like, well, what did somebody get that's a better deal than our deal? If it truly is. This had three bathrooms, so they've got an extra bathroom. It's a little bit bigger. It's 2,300 square feet versus 22. Um, yeah, this one does have more pictures. Or is that it too? Oh, that's it too. Not always getting a ton of pictures on these, but you can see, okay, this is arguably nicer looking property, right? Um, and I don't know. I spent some time on this, but this is the sort of thing that I want to do. So this one made me think like, maybe our 300 is still a little bit high. But this person also might have just got a good deal. It's also possible that they got it under contract and then they found some issue and they negotiated it down lower, right? Like that's the sort of stuff that you just never really know when you look at comps. And you have to remember too, is when you do see pictures of comps, it's always going to make it look better, or it's almost always, real estate listing pictures look better than the property looks like in real life. And so I looked at that one. I looked at this one too, the 337. Again, older property. This one is smaller, significantly smaller. Um, it has a garage. I think ours doesn't, right? Does ours? Yeah, ours doesn't have a garage. It just has a carport. But again, I mean, you're 10% higher in price with quite a few less square footage. Also, though, you are over on this other side, so it's not really the same neighborhood. I mean, I just don't love being in a different. I mean, they're calling this all the same neighborhood, right? But it is not. It's not the way that it's not like I'd rather have stuff that's just right here if possible, which is what makes this 333 really the best one in my mind. I mean, it's just right there. Um, but then I also want to see like, okay, what is somebody paying a lot more money for? Well, okay, this was built in 2000. I mean, it's clearly just a nicer, newer home. And then you can move a little bit further out if you want to get more comfortable. And like this was mind blowing to me. Like, why is this so much cheaper? Um, One of the things too, if we're not getting the pictures here, sometimes we can search these somewhere else. No blind offers or wholesalers, but so that makes me think that this one was one that was, in rough shape. There are a few affordable options. I don't know. That's my guess on this one. I didn't dig into it too much because it is now we're getting pretty far away. It starts to become an outlier. Maybe it's the fact that it's on this, more main road. But so this made me feel a lot better about it. I'd still love to see, these guys at Mogul provide us with a little bit more than just a list of comps, right? I'd like to see the CMA that their agent gives them. If they, well, but on this one, they're just a client, not or just a customer, not a client. So maybe they didn't get a CMA. But I'd like to see, how they really work these out because like they do have one that they used that was 269, right? It was 30,000 less than ours. But all of these were smaller as well. So. I don't know. I felt a lot better about that price. I did pick up. I just bought a small piece of this one. I didn't buy, as much as I did in the axle rod or anything like that. But I figured, I am still very much experimenting with this platform, just like all the others, and I think that this is. I think they do a really good job. Like more than any of the other platforms, I'd like to give these guys the benefit of the doubt because they do. I think the strategies they're using, the markets they're picking, I think they're doing a good job in that respect. And so, um, and especially because they did have good answers, right? Like they're just showing me, oh, hey, look at these most recent sales. And when I really pulled those up, I think they're right. Like I don't know why Zillow was pulling ones from so far back to use. I mean, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It doesn't usually do that when I'm, so and I was just too lazy when I was, that was, I think I already had a pretty long video. I should have done this, right? Like if anytime if you're not really sure about the valuation, I mean, this is the way to do it, right? Go in, look at actual comps, spend some time, and more time than I am on this video, right? Like I spent a decent amount of time earlier today doing this. And really try to decide like are these is this property really comparable, is it not, is it nicer, like that's the thing, like we don't have the nicest property here, right? But especially where we're operating, like this is if we were going to try to sell this to a single family homeowner, this is not up to most people's standards today. but this is very much in line with what I've seen a lot of the pad split offerings look like, right? I mean, we just don't have these beautiful kitchens. It's not what we're expecting, right? I mean, they have, so this doesn't necessarily bother me so much. Even if you had a brand new property today, 10 years from now, you're probably going to do some sort of renovation before you sell it anyway. And so I don't know. So anyway, I did buy a little piece of this one, not a whole bunch. That's going to be my strategy on this. I think any of the ones that I'm like, I like it, but I don't love it. I think I would just buy a small amount because honestly, like when I compare this to almost any property that I'm buying on Lofty, I think I'd rather have this over a lot of them. Barring the fact that I'm getting a huge discount on a lot of those, right? Or certainly if I compare it to a lot of the arrived homes, I mean, like okay, maybe they're wrong on valuation. Excuse me, and my IRR isn't going to be great, but just my cash on cash yield, I'm expecting to get, significantly, more in just this current yield than what I'm, going to get with the yield plus appreciation on some of those other ones. So, I don't know. For me, this one made a lot of sense when I went ahead and picked a little bit up. That's all I'm going to share with you today. If they do get back to me about, because I did ask, do you have, more detail about, what the money's going to be spent on as far as for the repairs. If they do end up getting back to me with something like that, I'll share that as well. They have just been selling out their properties real quick, which means, I mean, look at this. This is it just moves so fast, right? And so, unfortunately, that means there's a lot of people out there that are buying without doing proper due diligence, right? Like, I mean, there's got to be these unanswered questions. You got to be like, there's people that are just like, look at that yield, I like it, and that's what happened a lot in the early years on Lofty, and a lot of people got hurt, and that's why I think it's important for us to keep pushing, keep making sure that we're getting good details on the pricing and whatnot. I almost forgot to say this. Um, I've had complaints a few times about my volume not being very good. I've been using a microphone that just sits on my chest here, and it seems like it does a little better, but I think it's also still not perfect. If you don't mind commenting on whether or not you hear me well, or if you have to turn it up, I'd like to know because I'm thinking about maybe getting one of those big silly boom mics that hangs over me while I do this. I will feel a little odd sitting in my reclining couch here in the living room with a boom mic, but I want to make sure that people can actually hear these if I'm going to be recording them. Anyway, enough of that, and that's really all I'm going to say about the Mafi here. I do just want to mention every time I interact with the guys at Mogul, I just it's such a different company compared to a lot of the other ones because they are definitely real estate people first, and the technology aspect is really a secondary. It's really just to make the real estate function go, and that just comes through every time I ask them a question about deals, every time I ask them about reporting a certain thing and whatnot. Like I never they so I don't know. I don't want to gush too much about them because it is still really early. You could still get hurt. Who knows what's going to happen, and that's why I'm not putting a ton of money into any of these deals yet. Um, but I mean, so far I'm just very, very cautiously optimistic. Let's get rid of those and let's just jump into this. So this app, this is compound real estate bonds. Like I mentioned, a couple people have asked me about this now. You can buy very small pieces of these bonds, like $10 at a time. They're saying, okay, we're giving you 8.5% APY. Um, when you click on their how it works, it seems like, oh, it's kind of interesting, right? Like, it makes sense, right? Okay, so what happens? We buy the bonds. It gives money to Compound Real Estate Bonds, then Compound Bank, which is that's the actual website I'm on. It's not super clear how that entity is different from Compound Real Estate Bonds, but I think the Compound Real Estate Bonds are the bonds themselves, and this Compound Bank is who's doing the work. But Compound Bank, it appears to me is not actually a bank. Um, I wish they didn't name themselves this because when you go to like even though it's a weird spelling, Some other countries use a C in bank, so I don't know. I mean, I thought that was kind of weird. But so it appears they're not actually a bank. They're definitely not FDIC insured or anything. Um, but so what they're saying is, oh, okay, we lend that money to real estate and mortgage assets, and then as we get interest back, that's how we get a high return, and then that's how we pay our bondholders. And they tell you this is how we're planning to allocate it. Their website I think is super slick. Like, it makes it sound really good. But you can see this is what I wanted to know, right? I clicked into looking in their offering circular. Um, let's see, is this which one? This is the no. Which one am I on here? Um. Oh, I think I might have closed the wrong tab. Let's see. Let me open their offering circular again. Oh, okay. But so there's this note in here. Um, this is from saying, their management has raised, doubt about our ability to continue as a going concern. And so this is way back in, at inception when they were selling out. Even though this is a more recent document, but if you look at the older one, it says that, they had been losing money before they decided to raise funds. Um, there was this note that there's this concern that they weren't going to be able to. That now they're going to raise funds. Um, but there's no, they're like, oh, we have no guarantee that we're going to be able to, to be able to pay out. So I go into the most recent. This is the most recent, Form 1SA. Their semi-annual report. And I mean, this is anytime that you have these. This is the one thing that's good about any of them that are, doing SEC reporting, versus trying to operate in some sort of loophole or safe harbor where they're not doing that. Is that you get all these documents online that really give you a little bit more info than maybe what they don't want to share on their website. But this was a really interesting note to me. So this is the most recent, June 30th. Liquid assets, right? This is cash and cash equivalents, and their treasury bills. Okay, this is their total of assets, right? Is 2.6 million, but outstanding bonds. So bonds that they've sold, 3.1 million. And then if you compound the interest on that, it's really, 3.2 outstanding. And then they have additional current liabilities. And I couldn't find anything else about any other assets that they hold. So it doesn't appear to me, and you can look at their consolidated financial statements, which I had looked at, right? So cash and cash equivalents, treasury bills, and then they're saying, okay, well, here's the value of their software that's developed. But they don't own any real estate yet. They don't own any mortgages. They haven't made any investments. That's terrifying to me, right? And so there are probably people that, if you look at the cash on hand that they have and whatnot, so what it appears to me is going on, and I can't confirm this. I mean, this is just me speculating, but it looks like, people have bought bonds. They are paying people out their yield that they promised, but they're just doing it out of the cash that they have on hand from their raise, right? I mean, I don't know. Let's see, operating expenses. Yeah, interest on bonds. Right. Yeah. So, and plus they're spending all this other money. But yeah, so they've paid out, $76,000 in interest on bonds. They've had income from the treasury bonds that they own, but I mean, treasury bonds are not going to yield anywhere near enough to pay out that APY. So this is terrifying to me, right? I mean, I don't believe it's a Ponzi scheme, right? I hate to say, throw that term out there, but it's functioning kind of like one where, at the moment they're just paying investors yield with investors' money is what it looks like to me. Now, obviously, I don't have any I don't have any inside information on this company. I'm just telling you what it looks like to my, when I'm looking at this, okay, when they say we raised X amount of dollars, we have X minus quite a bit. We've had interest expense. Um, I guess it's possible that there has been real estate owned that's just not owned today, right? Like maybe they bought some notes and then sold it, and then you'd have to look at everything to know if that were the case. Um, but yeah, I mean that's just so there is zero chance that I would put any money into this. I don't, and even if they were buying properties and paying a yield, this is still ends up not being a true fractional real estate site, meaning, okay, I can buy $10 bonds, but I don't get to pick what that is in, right? I don't get to pick what I don't get to see what the specific collateral is. I don't get to make any decisions in that regard. And so this is definitely different from what I'd be looking at. For me, now, one thing that makes this attractive is that you can pull money out right away. Um, and I'm guessing that's why people, are asking about this and looking at this, and it sounds good, but I just don't see it as being um, a viable business. And I mean, when they put right in their statements, like, yeah, their accountant, their auditor says we have doubts about them as a going concern, and then they say it themselves, and they say, we can't guarantee that we're going that we're going to, and obviously they never, companies can't guarantee that they're going to be in business, but like, what, the fact that they just come out and have to say this, make this point in here, uh, I'd want a much higher return if I might put my money in this if I was getting paid out 100% annualized and I could actually see it in my account and take some out tomorrow. But for what is a very, in my mind, ho-hum return, uh, there's just no chance at all that I would put money into this. Again, that's me. You want to do your own due diligence on this. It's perfectly possible that there's stuff that I'm missing. You can see it happens all the time, just like, with the Mogul property that I looked at earlier in this video. I don't think I had it right yesterday or 2 days ago when I was looking at the value. I think that there's a, it's more likely that their number was right than what I was thinking at the time. And the same thing I think could be true here. I could certainly be missing something. But from everything that I've looked at and figured out so far, I just don't have the confidence I wouldn't put any money in that. Um, I think if I wanted something like this, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't just go to ground floor, other than that your money gets kind of tied up in ground floor. But you do get, especially you do get some liquidity on a monthly basis as stuff starts to roll over and pay off. And so unless you just needed a place to put money and then take it all out, in a couple months, it might be an attractive option, right? Because in that spot you're getting a specific yield on the individual ones that you buy. Um, it might check some of the boxes that maybe you were expecting this one to. Maybe not though. I mean, it's. I am curious, what the attraction is because it's not a great yield. So my guess is it's the instant liquidity that's getting people, right? But I guess because if you compare it to a savings account or bank, then it is a fantastic yield, right? But if you compare it to any sort of real investment where there's risk of loss, which there is here, then it all of a sudden doesn't seem like a great yield. Well, I guess if you compare it to Arrived, it does. Um, but yeah, I mean, of all of the platforms I've looked at so far, this is the one that I am the most scared of. Because it does just really look like that they haven't actually. It's very strange to me that they've raised some money, but there's not some real estate ownership that's showing up on their balance sheet anyway that I can see that is providing some income to cover that interest that they're paying out. Anyway, that is all I have to say about that. Um, until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.